Hello guys, and welcome to this React.js tutorial. In this tutorial I will be teaching you how to fetch data from an API in React.js. Please like and subscribe, and let's get started. So the first thing you want to do is actually go to your code editor, your project in the code editor, and I'm going to close this terminal. So the first thing we want to do is actually install Axios. So actually I need to open my terminal again. So new terminal, npm install Axios and -s to save it. So we'll be using Axios to actually go to the API and fetch the data and receive the response and get the data from the response, and this will all make sense as we go on with the video. Okay, so now that Axios has been installed, I'm going to close my terminal and close this sidebar as well. So the first thing we want to do is actually get the data from the API, obviously. So once the component is rendered, once the page is rendered, we want to get the data from the API and display it on the page. So to do this, we need to use the use effect hook in React.js. So use effect, and this is automatically generated for me from using the extension for React.js. This extension, ES7 React Redux GraphQL. Download this extension if you're using Visual Studio Code. Otherwise, then just do this use effect function. And I'm going to remove this return, this effect, and I'll remove this input. So this is all you need to code if you have not used the extension. And we need to import this use effect from React.js. So let's go ahead and do this. Import use effect from React. Okay. So basically, before the component is rendered, this function would be called, the use effect function, and whatever you do inside here would happen. So use effect is run after the component is rendered, but it will re-render the component. So this once the component, this function will run, and then the component will be rendered. So we want to get the data and then display it, and the component will be rendered. So let's actually get the data right now. So I'm going to use an API. It's called JSON placeholder .typicode.com/users. So this just gives me some dummy data, which is an array of JSON objects that contains users. So a user has a name, ID, username, email, address, a lot of stuff. So I'm going to use this API. So copy this, and inside use effect we want to import Axios. So Axios, it automatically imported it from me. If it didn't, just do import Axios from Axios. It's very simple. And Axios.get, so this is going to be a GET request. So there's many types of requests. There's POST request, PUT request, GET request. There's a lot of requests. So we're going to be using a GET request, and put the URL inside the string, and then we'll do .then. So after we receive a response, this would call an arrow function, and we'll do what we want with that response. So the response we'll be receiving, you can name it whatever. I just called it res. I'll call it response so it's more clear. So you can call this whatever you want. So once we receive the response, I'm just going to console.log it right now so we can see the response. So console.log response, and I'm going to save this. And if I refresh in our React app and inspect element, go to console info, as you can see we have an object which is our response, and inside this response we have config, headers, request, data. We don't need all of these. All we want is the data, which is the data that we are receiving, and this data is basically an array of 10 objects that have users. So to receive this data, we can do response.data. So if I data, not date. If I console.log this now, so if I refresh, well, as you can see, it re-rendered the component and did it again. But if I refresh, as you can see, we have response.data. This is the array of objects. So now we are receiving these objects. Let's actually set them in state once we are receiving them. So I'm going to use the useState hook from React.js. So const, I'm going to call it data and set data, and this is going to be equal to useState, and initially it will be just an empty array. And we need to import useState obviously from React.js. So useState, and okay, so once we receive the data, we want to call this set data and pass in our data, which is response.data. Okay, so now that the data has been set, let's actually display this data. So I'm going to remove this header, and inside this div I'm going to open these, and I'll do data dot map. So I'm going to map over all the data. So use the map method, and this would give you the data one by one. So I'm just going to call each one, for example, item, and this would be an arrow function. And when we receive the item, I want to return, let's see, let's return a h1 with item.name. So I think the user should have a name, so item.name. I'm not sure if he has a name, but let's check actually. We can check in the API over here. So yes, it has a name. So I'll just return the name of that user. So if I save this, as you can see, we are displaying the name of each user now. So I hope you have enjoyed this tutorial, and I hope you have learned something. Please like and subscribe. Thank you.